Hello, 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 friends, and welcome back to another book review. We're going to be touching on Berzerker, the first book in the Twirled World Ink series. I've read this as Twisted World Ink the entire time I was reading it, and so if I say Twisted World Ink, I apologize. I don't mean to butcher the genre, the category, or the series, if you will. I read it as Twisted, and that's probably something on me. But this is by J.M. Dabney. I read this again on my California vacation. This was, I think, one of the books I read on the down trip. I read the shorter books on the down trip to kind of not get them out of the way, but because I knew I could read the longer books during the day, lounging by the pool, hot tub, that kind of stuff. So that's where my brain went with regards to how I read these. But I remember reading this on the way down, and I remember really enjoying this book on the way down. So let's get into that. Obviously, spoilers if you haven't read the book. I haven't read the other books in this series, so I don't know much about what I say may spoil the next book. Hopefully not. But obviously, we're going to go over the story. We're going to start off with the characters and side characters because there are plenty of them. And let me know if you guys prefer me talking about the characters first or the plot synopsis, if you will, first. I've been bouncing back and forth lately, and I just not sure what you guys prefer. If you guys like me talking about the characters, so you kind of get an idea of who we're talking about first, which I think makes sense in my brain. Or if you prefer about the story first, and then we dive a little bit deeper into the characters. Either or, I'm fine with doing. Just let me know what you think, and I'll be happy to, shake things up a bit. So, starting off with the characters, our two protagonists, love interests. We have Brian Berzerker Anderson and Landon Phelps. So, starting off with Brian, he's described as a large, husky, and tattooed man with a long beard. He is definitely like big built, kind of bear of a man, if you will, and it shows. And that's the man I aspire to one day be, and also to one day have. But he works as a tattooer in the studio, if you will, Twirled World Ink. I believe that's what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. I should know. I'm the one who read the book after all. But his current boyfriend breaks up with him when the current boyfriend, buys a house and decides to leave Berzerker in the dust. Because he obviously can do better, but nobody's better than Berzerker. And as we will see throughout the book, he has a very flirtatious romance, or relationship, I should say, with Landon. But it doesn't go much beyond that. Like, Landon sits on his lap. Landon will kind of only have eyes and bat his eyes at Berzerker. But Berzerker just really kind of just goes along with it, plays along, if you will. But speaking of Landon, he feels a little bit out of place in his family as he chose to be an accountant instead of following in his parents' footsteps as tattoo artists. He doesn't have any tattoos, and he has promised Berzerker to be able to be the one who first pierces his ink, or his skin with ink, if you will. So he's definitely got a lot of feelings towards Berzerker and a lot of affection towards the bigger man. And he's, like I said, he's very handsy with Berzerker even before they start the relationship, before they're together, even while Berzerker is with his current boyfriend, or his now ex, by the time we start reading the book. So, sitting on his lap, climbing him like a tree, handsy, stuff like that. So, speaking of the, boyfriend / ex and other characters. So, we have Ron. We don't talk about Ron. We don't like Ron. He is a country club asshole, and he is Berzerker's ex. He is the one who gets the house and buys a house, gets the house, and leaves Berzerker in the fucking dust. We don't like him. So moving on to people we do like, which are Landon's parents, Gib Phelps and Peaches. They are very open about everything with their child. Landon goes to them to confess that he is catching the feelings, or have caught feelings for Berzerker, and has, concerns and stuff like that. He's very much, I don't want to be dating an employee, and I don't want the power dynamic to affect the others, that kind of stuff. He's kind of responsible about it. And they're not afraid to knock some sense into both Landon and Berzerker, their own son and their employee. They're happy to sit them down and be like, get your shit together. And then for Twirled World Ink, I'm doing really good at not saying twisted for once. We have Lucky, Priest, Trouble, Scary, Gibbs, and Peaches, of course, who are the owners. And then obviously Landon and Berzerker, but we've already touched on those. So not necessarily side characters at that point. But I believe, and I'm hopefully not wrong, that every one of these characters except Gib and Peaches, Lucky, Priest, Trouble, and Scary, get their turn for love in the next book in the Twirled World Ink series. I think there's 5 books. I haven't looked this up. I should have do more research before I do these, but we're here to talk about this book, not the rest of them. So, as far as plot overviews, I've touched on Berzerker's intro, if you will. He gets dumped in the most horrible fashion as his ex Ron leaves him behind to move into a fancy new house, basically leaving him for dust. Landon happens to see Berzerker sleeping in the Twirled World Ink studio and says, no, honey, we're not doing that. You're not sleeping here. Come live with me. I have a guest room. You know, you can stay there for as long as you need. There's no pressure, stuff like that. And so Berzerker goes, lives with Landon, and, you know, their relationship starts from there. Not that they immediately fall in love and immediately hook up, but the tension is there, the undeniable sexual chemistry and sexual attraction is there. But as for each of them, they have to kind of work up to it. You know, Berzerker doesn't want to jump in anything too soon, feels like Landon deserves better. Somebody who's more like Landon, not more like Berzerker. You know, Landon deserves the best, essentially. And Landon wants to climb Berzerker like a fucking tree, and I don't blame him, because I want to climb him like a tree too. So, you know, after years of pining, Landon makes the first move while his parents are over, resulting in a fun scene where basically Landon is grinding on almost a completely nude Berzerker, and his mom walks in, which is great. They get caught. They're still not official at that point, but they're teetering on becoming official. But before they can get their happily ever after, the person we won't talk about, the ex who decides to rear his ugly face again, and tries to convince Landon that Berzerker really loves him, and tries to get back with Berzerker despite Berzerker not having any of that bullshit. So it's definitely, it moves fast for what it is. I don't think it's the terribly long book. It's about 160-ish pages or so it's decent. The chapter titles are amazing, though. Some of them, you know, Attack of the Nudists, I think is chapter 4. A Study in Patience, you know, it's a solid book, and the titles are great. The little tongue-in-cheek, if you will. But overall, solid plot. I enjoyed a lot of this book. So let's go through some tropes before we go into the reviews and rankings. So I want this trope tattooed on my heart for everything. I love friends to lovers and coworkers to lovers. Like, Brandon and Berzerker are like close friends, if you will, but they're also like close coworkers, obviously, because Landon's sitting on Berzerker's lap at every fucking chance he can get, which, I mean, I would do the same if I wanted to crush a man. But, you know, Berzerker's hesitant for dating the employee's son. You know, he doesn't know what the parents would think. Kind of just like, you know, traditional, you know, I'm dating my boss kind of stuff. But, you know, Berzerker and also Landon have essentially a found family and a loving actual family. London, we're going London Bridges now. Landon, has his parents. You know, I believe he's the only child, so he's got all the love and affection he could need. His parents are very loving, very kind, very open. Berzerker may not have that from what I can recall, but, you know, he's found a family with the Twirled World Ink studio artists, and also, you know, Landon's parents welcomed him with open arms. So, you know, they have their own found family, and, you know, same goes for Berzerker with regards to the found family kind of dynamic. They all hate Ron. They all thought Ron was a piece of shit because he didn't really jive well, you know, with the group and with Berzerker's lifestyle, and I fully support that. There is a brief touch on some BDSM elements. Berzerker is definitely the dom in the relationship, and Landon is a sub to some degree. More so, I would say this is just BDSM light, if you will. He's a rough lover, Berzerker, and, you know, he knows what he wants. And, you know, he and Landon get into some power dynamics during one of the steamy encounters near the middle of the book, but I wouldn't classify this as like a pure BDSM read. It's very mid in that regard. It's not like super BDSM. Yes, sir. No, sir. Let me serve, sir. It's not very, very like vanilla BDSM, where it's just like light spanking, I guess. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. I would say a little bit more leaning towards the heavier side, but it's not like they're busting out like whips and chains and stuff to excite me, you know? So as far as ranking goes, we'll go through these as we normally go through each week. We'll talk about a little bit about the plot and how I felt about it, the characters and how I felt about those, the writing style, the spicy scenes, and just an overall ranking at the end. So starting off with the plot, 3 stars for sure. I really enjoyed it. It's a fast read, though, in my opinion. And again, Most books are here for the smut, and I get that, but I love a book with plot. Like, if I can get Where the Devil Says Goodbye, or Goodnight, excuse me, on loop, but different, like, flavors and different, like, tropes and stuff, I would be happy. Again, it's 160 pages. Not a lot happens, but stuff happens fast. Some of the scenes are very disjoint, and it took me a minute to figure out where we are, what are we dealing with, stuff like that. So it's enjoyable. It's a nice plot. It's a happily ever after, which I love. So yeah. The characters, though, I do think this is where this shines. Even the side characters, I loved reading about, like, Lucky, Priest, Trouble, and Scary. I love the bike rides they go on. I love Landon and Berzerker as a relationship and a couple and individual people. I love Landon's parents. We don't talk about Ron, but we enjoy the drama he brings when he shows up. So it's it's a fun cast of characters. This actually makes me want to read the other books because I kind of want to get a better sense of, like, who Trouble is, who Lucky is, who Priest is, because I honestly forgot some of their names when I was going through this, and I had to, like, double check, like, what it is. Also, I forgot to mention there's a dog. I think his name is not Hero Hercules. No, I don't remember what the dog's name is, but there's a cute dog, and it's adorable, and it loves Landon, and it does not like Berzerker anymore because Landon's there, and Landon is obviously the best. So it was enjoyable. I enjoyed the characters, and even the dog that I forgot about, which is my bad. Writing style, though, 3.5 stars. There weren't anything major that I had issues with, besides, like, some scenes just not reading as, like I couldn't figure out where we were per se, and it took me a minute to, like, reread it. And again, it might have been me because I was on the way down to California and I was trying to pay super close attention to this, but there were just some scenes that didn't quite line up, not in a bad way, but just like, okay, where are we? Who's involved? There's just a lot of characters sometimes on like one section. I'm like, okay, where are we and who's all here? So it's enjoyable. It's not bad. Don't get me wrong. 3.5 stars is solid in my opinion. And as far as the spicy scenes go, this is a solid 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I wish there were more. I like the slight BDSM touches because, again, I don't think this is marketed as like a BDSM book per se, but I definitely enjoyed it. I wish there were more. I wish I could ride and climb Berzerker like a tree, but I hope that Landon is enjoying him because it's great. And the cover, which I haven't touched on, is probably the main reason why I bought it, because I was like, oh yeah, no, he looks like the type I would want to go for. So, you know, sometimes I do judge a book by their covers, not all the time, but this time I did, and I did not regret it. So overall, I'll give this 3.5 stars. It's more for me leaning towards 4 stars despite the coloring, but would lead you to believe otherwise. I would say this is a solid 3.5 stars. I very much enjoyed the plot. I very much enjoyed the book as a whole. This, again, makes me want to read the other ones, as I know I touched on The Devil Next Door, which, you know, some of those Criminal Delight series I'm a little bit hit and miss on in terms of, do I want to read this? Do I not want to read this? Like, this one, I think I would want to read all of them, provided that they're all gay and romances, which I think they are. But if they're not, you know, I will probably pass on the ones that aren't. But I think because all the characters in the Twirled World Ink studio are men, I think all of them are going to be turning out gay or like find an romance. So all in all, enjoyable book. If you like, you know, slight tattooing, it doesn't really go into much about that. But if you like, you know, not enemies to lovers, what am I saying? They're not enemies. If you like friends to lovers or coworkers to lovers, that kind of like, not will they, won't they, but like kind of like teasing angle, the build up, if you will, great. It's a solid book. I cannot recommend it enough. So other books in similar trope categories, if you will, if I had to talk about a forbidden romance, and this is me leaning heavily onto the boss coworker, boss like employee kind of thing, with him Landon being the accountant, I'll go by Handled, which is a dark gay romance as well. So again, if you don't like darker stuff, probably stay away from it, by Romilly King. Handled is a kind of alternate universe book where they handle, you know, severe criminals in a way that may or may not be humane per se, but it's about a handler and a witness, if you will, to those devious criminals, and the relationship between the handler and the witness. And it was enjoyable. Like I said, it's darker. It's more forbidden romance because they shouldn't be getting involved so heavily in that kind of respect with their field of work. But it was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. and I will definitely recommend it to read it. But if you're looking for more heavier BDSM, but still not necessarily like fully like, chains and whips excite me style, but just like heavier kind of like control and like submission and stuff like that, Jason Collins' Obedience Submission Book 1 is solid. It's about being stranded in the Alaskan wilderness with a character, and then the mountain man, if you will, who is not there to protect him, but basically kind of stumbles upon him and offers to shelter him and protect him. So it's also straight to gay, if you will, as we touched on earlier with the one that got away that I did, I think, a couple weeks ago. This was enjoyable. I enjoyed this. It's definitely, how do I say this? It's kind of similar to the one that got away, where it's forced proximity because of environmental situations. And it goes through their budding relationship with regards to, BDSM. It's an enjoyable book. And yeah, like I said, it goes into more BDSM. There's a happily ever after. And it's a solid book. So we'll be touching on probably both of these later, as long as the other ones I've touched on that I haven't made a review on yet. Probably going to have to reread them because I don't recall everything that happens in them, which is why these recommendations are a little bit vague. But what else isn't vague? So I hope you guys are enjoying me discussing these just books that I read. Kind of all over the place. Some are years old, some are months old, some are weeks old at this point that I've read. But if you could do all the YouTube things, give me a like, subscribe if you find me interesting. I will touch on more books here in the next few weeks and probably throughout the rest of the year, and maybe in perpetuity as long as I can keep getting books. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Hope you guys had a great weekend, or have a great weekend. This is probably going to go up on Saturday. So much love, my friends. I wish you the best. Stay safe. I love you. And again, thank you so much for hanging out with me for about 15, 20 minutes while we just talk about smut and books and what I like and don't like about them. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.